We just came back from a 16-day trip to see family and friends up north. I tallied our expenses, including food, fuel, and other costs, and if you include it all, we spent almost $1,200 or just over $75 a day. If you spent that much every day, that would be over $27,000 in a year. The problem is, the expenses I called other included things like museum tickets and gifts we bought, so I don't really want to include these, as any vacation would have those kinds of expenses anyway. So that's about $100 less right there. That would reduce the daily expenses to just over $68 or a yearly of just under $25,000. Not that we travel every day of the year, but it puts things into perspective. So what's left are all the food and fuel expenses. We like to eat out with friends and try local foods, especially when traveling, so these expenses, at least for us, are fairly large. Just over $500 or about $33 a day. We ran out of milk, so went grocery shopping too, and that's added in there. Fuel is another big expense when driving a Class B, but the numbers are a little misleading. The cost was over $35 a day for a total of $568, but we went north in winter, and it got cold. It was 21 degrees at night, and most days weren't that much warmer, so we used our heater all day and night for a lot of that trip. Since our heater is fueled by the gasoline in the van, a lot of it was used for heating, not traveling. Of course, if we had a propane heater, we would be spending that money anyway, and I would have included that in the expense. Gasoline contains more energy than propane, about 36% more if you compare BTU, so a propane heater would have used more fuel than we did with our gasoline heater, but the price of propane would have been less per gallon, so I'm guessing it would have been about the same cost. Regardless, if we had traveled in summer, we would have spent less on gasoline since we would have not needed the heat on the van. Honestly, it's hard for me to determine how much fuel I needed to use to heat the van, but if I had to guess, I'd say it was no more than 15 gallons of gas, if that. At our average of $3.23 a gallon for this trip, that's about $48. This means our fuel costs would have been about 8% less if we had traveled in the summer. If we had taken this trip in a car, we would have gone out to restaurants even more than we did, so technically we spent less on our food by traveling by RV. And of course, we didn't have any hotel expenses since we stayed at Harvest Hosts, but we spent money buying craft beer and other items by staying at those sites. Now, based on previous stays at hotels, a Harvest Host site is still much cheaper than any hotel we've stayed at, especially since hotels charge us a daily pet fee for our dog. And of course, we're getting something more for our money than just a place to sleep. Food and fuel costs were higher than I thought they'd be at almost $1,100, but if you don't include the heating cost, it was a little over a grand. And I can live with that. Of course, if we had just made food in the van, we would have only had grocery prices and not high restaurant costs. But then again, we would not have experienced going out to dinner with friends, so I think the additional cost is worth it. For those keeping count, that's about $65.45 a day, or just under 24 grand a year. The point is, RV travel isn't about saving money. You're still going to spend money in additional fuel, or at restaurants, or buying museum tickets or gifts. But you do save the expense of hotels, and at least for us, we save in additional charges for pet deposits, which are easily $20 to $30 a day. So don't expect to somehow travel for free. You may save money on each trip using that RV, but don't forget, you had to buy that RV at a price quite a bit more than, well, any car I've ever owned. RV travel is about gaining experiences. Experiences that you just wouldn't find with any other form of travel. And that is priceless. Be seeing you.